How's it going? Welcome back to the shed. So I'm just doing a update on the fuel tap, which I started repairing in the last video, and I've taken a bit of that footage to put in this video to make this a fuel tap only kind of standalone video for anyone that's not interested in the other stuff I'm doing but just wants to have a look at a leaky fuel tap on the Bonneville Thruxton Scrambler America Speedmaster, that fuel tap. And so yeah, I've got my replacement parts, and here it is. Enjoy. The eagle-eyed among you may have seen a little dish I had underneath it when it was all set up. That's because even when this was turned to the off, which is on now, I was still getting a very slight drip from the fuel tap. Now you can read on some forums and people hate the Triumph fuel tap, this Bonneville one, for some reason. There's not an awful lot of love. That being said, I've not had a problem with either of the two that we've got, apart from this very slow weep on here. Yeah, I mean, and this one is, what, 18, almost 19 years old now. So I think that's pretty good going. If a couple of the O-rings or whatever inside are drying out, or it's a bit gummed up, I think it's served some fairly good service. Let's get it off. They're not cheap to replace. I think they're like about 80 odd quid or something. You read on some of the forums, there's like the Pingle replacement ones. I'd rather not be spending 80 odd quid on a fuel tap. I've never taken one of these ones apart. Can't see many rebuild kits for these. I don't think there's many parts inside here. Triumph don't sell all of the parts separately. We'll have a close look when I take this off and get inside. It's a bit more of a simple setup. Looking at the pictures, I think there's just maybe a couple of O-rings. There's definitely some O-ring seals here because where I've had the tap off before. But yeah, and just for clarification, the slight weep, it's not from where the mating face against the tank. It's not coming through the dial front here. It was literally just here. So there is obviously some, I'm imagining there's some sort of O-ring or O-rings inside here, and then some sort of like valve situation that shuts it off as you turn, you know, either to reserve or on. But we'll have a look. It's on off now. There's still a little bit of fuel down the bottom, so I'm going to keep it upright, but I'm going to take the fuel tap off and then we'll get inside and have a little look and see what can be done. Get your screw with a sort of sealing washer, two of those on there. Carefully withdraw. You might be able to see here flakes of paint and bits of crap, just stuff that's been floating around in the bottom of the tank, probably a bit of the paint and lining on the inside. That's what your fuel filters are for. So we've got this kind of spacer plate here. That's the first thing that can come off. So that's your main fuel feed, and that's your reserve. So if it drops, obviously you switch to reserve, and that'll. So looking at this, there's obviously something that opens an opening there for when your fuel's on, so it allows it to flow down there and out. And then when you hit reserve, that closes that one off, opens an opening somewhere around here, which allows that to flow the fuel through there. And then when you're on off, that should close both of those off. Something is getting through still when we're on off. But yeah, so there's our first gasket-y O-ring type thing. Carefully, don't want to mess up the filters. In fact, let's get this gasket off first. So it's not too bad a condition. You can see some old bits of the glazing from old fuel maybe in there, but it seems to be keeping everything in. There's no cracks. We'll see. What I'm kind of hoping is if there's some little O-rings inside. I've got an O-ring kit. I've just just a load of, I can't remember if they're Viton or nitrile O-rings, but they should do the, I've got a couple of boxes. Hopefully I've got some that are the right size and will fit. That's the reserve filter. Don't damage that. That's no nicks, rips or tears. That one has got a little bit of a hinge in it. Might be as well, given that these are, I'm assuming these are the originals. For the sake of £7, yeah, it's too little. Yeah, you can see that one's actually perished a little bit there around the edges, all the cracks. It might be as well just to replace. Right, so the actual, back to the fuel tap, so I might have had a hole there, but no, that's okay. So we've got a screw under here, which is kind of like, almost like acts like a grub screw. And I'm putting my thumb over here because I imagine there's a spring. Possibly, or I don't know what's going to fall out. Yeah, spring. Okay, so there's a tap. Spring. There's an O-ring in there. Is it in a groove or is it just sat in there? There's no actual groove for it to sit in. Looks like there's a bit of mankin stuff in there anyway. It's not split, but it does feel a little bit brittle. So we've got. So I'm guessing this bit in here is this blue bit. It's going to be. You see that. In fact, that's what fits in there, and then obviously it turns it round, and you can see that one is slightly larger. That one is slightly larger than that one. There's a difference there, so that's quite good in that you can makes it easier on reassembly. That there's only really one way you can orientate things. Right, let's try and get that out. So, God, it stinks that old fuel. So yeah, you might be able to see. Let me just have a look round. So there's obviously two holes that line up with the reserve and the main fuel flow. Can you see them in there? There, that one, that side. and then you've got this, which sits in there. You can see these openings then, so as you turn that, that opens either the reserve or the main, or shuts them both off. So there's not an awful lot of parts in there. This fitting here, almost, I don't know how that, I'm not gonna, that I think is probably, it might even be brazed in there, I don't know, that I don't think I'm gonna try, and there's no need to take that out. I think there's no leaking from around here, so if it ain't leaking, why disturb it? Don't even know if this bit comes out actually, but again, I'm not going to try and force anything. So I'm guessing that somehow some of the fuel, when it's on off, is obviously still leaking past what we've got inside. So it might just be, there's nothing obviously damaged, but it might just be a case of just giving everything a real good clean up, replace the O-rings, and see what happens. So there we go. This is Sprint Manufacturing, and it's triumphparts.co.uk, and this is the nearest thing I can find. I haven't been able to find it anywhere else, but for £7.95 that gives you these two replacement seals, and that bad boy, which is going to be that one, which is on the inside. But that's as much as I can find on a rebuild. Hopefully it's nothing to do with this being worn, because it doesn't look like you can get that separately, and there's not much else to replace on there really. So yeah, £7.95, and that is across the Thunderbird 900, Tiger 900 and Bonneville 800 and 865. So yeah, I'm going to order those, and hopefully that will solve the problem. So we go from Sprint Manufacturing then. This is the next day delivery. Very quick, but I ordered a few other extra bits just to make the postage worthwhile. It was a few quid for postage, but I've got another front sprocket retaining tab washer, some banjo bolt copper washers, sump plug copper washers, just stuff that I'll be using. But the main bad boys, and these two of them are actually Triumph genuine parts, and that's the part number. So two of those, and a new O-ring to go on the inside. Everything's had a good clean up now, so just a bit of, I used a bit of WD-40, some soapy water, a little bit of Scotch Brite, just cleaned everything up, just whilst it was all apart, why not? So we'll start with our first our first gasket O-ring seal. So it's obviously you've got a big circle on that one and a cutout there. Now that cutout does fit over the filter there, but given that when we pop in the reserve fuel filter and this little cutout is close down there, I'm more inclined to think that it's going to go with the cutout there and the circle around the brass pipe. There's also a slight difference. That's raised, that's flat there. I'm going to guess where this raised area is in here, that's going to sit nicely in it, so I'm going to go that way down, so the kind of all the edges of the gasket fit in there like that. So you can see the two differences that way, so I've flipped it that way around. That was on there, fuel filter was on. Then we've got our spacer plate, I guess, for want of a better term. So we're going to have the flat side down, pressing down onto the gasket there. We've got a nice groove for the other gasket to go on, so same as we did before. It's going to be a little bit loose until we get the bolts in. Make sure we don't trap any of that. And then the main important bit is, where have I popped it? We've got our new O-ring for in here. So we've got, so this is the valve bit that opens and closes reserve or shuts it off. And then it's kind of got a locating point in there that fits that, so you can only go one way because that tab is slightly bigger than that tab, so you know that it's going to go in there, which is quite nice. Then when you line it up and orientate it, so you can see with the arrow facing off, that's how it's going to look inside there. And if you turned it to 12 o'clock to reserve, you've opened up that fuel path there, which would line up with the the reserve filter there. And then of course if you went all the way down to 6 o'clock, that would be on, which has opened up that hole there, which leads to the main fuel there. So we'll just pop that in. So I've got it on, I don't have that onto the on like that. So with that located in, get the new O-ring. Pop that in. Add a little spring. And well, before that goes in, you'll see, so that screw, this little screw here that goes in there, that's kind of sits in this channel here, acts like the grub screw, stops you from spinning all the way around, it just keeps it all together, and also retains this in there. Spring sitting in there, that'll line up with a hole in the middle down there. I have to try push that in till it feel it sort of click and seat. Screw in. Seems that shouldn't hopefully spring back out then. That's actually much smoother action on the fuel tank. That is lovely, smooth as pig shit. Well, apart from, I'm going to switch these old scabby bolts for some nice stainless cap head ones. Switch those little washers. They're just, I think they're just little plastic washers, those. I can do a vast amount of sealing. Oh yeah, do you know what, I'm going to need longer. You're going to need longer ones than that, mate. Picked up the wrong ones. Anyway, we'll stick those on and I think we'll whack it back on the tank, and then time to see if this has actually all been in vain or whether it's actually solved our slight weepage. So the moment of truth, let's see if the O-rings have done any difference. That's the rebuilt fuel tap. That's the one that's just come off the America, and it's the tank there because we got about 60 miles done in this tank, so still a load of fuel in. So we'll see if it's going to leak or not. So I'll just put the camera down, pop her on, and cross the fingers. And there you go. You can see that's made absolutely no difference whatsoever. So it must be something to do with that plasticky
valve thing in there, I guess, but it's a bit of a shame.
Right, so I'm going to pull it all apart one more time, because I refuse to give up. I'm switching out that replacement O-ring. I've just got a slightly fatter one. I'm going to try, just see if that makes a difference. I've also just got some steel wool inside there and cleaned everything out. Yeah, I'm trying to see really. You know, that's the only bit. That's where it's getting past. There's very little moving parts really. It's hard to see. The only thing I can think of is if that's worn, but I find it hard to believe that would be worn down enough that, you know, that's gonna makes a difference. But oh well, I can but try. Something I didn't mention on the last one, I used a bit of silicone just to coat all the O-rings when I reassembled them, and I hadn't pressed record when I showed that on the last reassemble, but I'm going to do that. Well, I have done it again, but yeah, we'll see second time. So that O-ring that goes on there, as far as I can see, that just stops the fuel possibly flowing back this way out through the face of the switch, the tap. Yeah, it's interesting. So it's when that's off, it's just obviously getting past. See, that is really the blue kind of valvey bit, the turny bit, that's the only thing that's going to be getting past when it's supposed to be off. Right, so I've chucked it on this tank and we're off to a better start already because there's nothing coming out there. So that's already a bit more promising, which I wasn't expecting. So let's, and that's on. So there's probably not as much fuel in here. So yeah, off. Obviously, that's nice to see there's nothing coming through. Reserve. Oh, yep. That's about £4 worth there. So, we've got a bit there. I've had some flowing through and moved around all the positions. I think we're good, you know. Happy days. So quite a pleasing end result. I was a little bit miffed originally because I thought that was probably a new fuel tap, but it's been a few minutes, well about 20 minutes, half an hour now, and nothing is coming out. So that does seem to have fixed it. So a little extra cleaning with the steel wool on the inside, and a slightly fatter O-ring, I don't know, but not much really. But anyway, regardless, I'm not going to overanalyze it. It's doing what it should be doing. That's saved me, what, about £80 or something. So that fuel tap will go on the newly welded tank on the Bonneville. So that's all those two jobs ticked off. As I say, this is probably going to end up being a standalone fuel tap video. But excellent, we can crack on with the rest of this project now. Thanks for watching. See you soon.